what is your business doing? Are you really giving people an elevated experience? They're going to have an experience with you one way or another. And as a business person, you get to decide what that's going to be. So they want an elevated experience. I mean, good, you mentioned, two things you mentioned just briefly there was good service. Well, today, good service is no longer good enough. If good service was good enough, then why are people changing companies so rapidly? Because they're what? They're taken for granted. They're a satisfied client or customer, but they're not a delighted advocate. Why? Because there's no real elevated experience. Thus, there's no emotional engagement. And when there's no emotional engagement, I'm open to what's next or who's next.
Richard, you're very welcome to the ScaleX Insider podcast. I'm absolutely delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much, Brendan. It's a real blessing, and I'm just grateful for the invitation to be with you and with all of your audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really looking forward to the conversation. We've been chatting off air. You know our vision, because you've commended it, is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So, Richard, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
I think it's important for us to recognize as business owners, as business leaders, as people in business, that a lot of people talk about, well, we need to really grow and get growth, and they're focused on explosive growth. And boy, if we could grow X percentage per year. But if we're going to grow, we need to grow not on pressure, but on purpose. In other words, have a very clear vision for that which it is that you want to accomplish. That's first. Second step, though, I can tell you from my experience in building businesses and consulting with companies all over the world of all different sizes, the most important thing if you're going to really grow is to lay out a step-by-step plan on how you're going to build the infrastructure to support that growth. We've heard the old phrase, well, you outkicked your coverage. Well, that's all good in US football, but it doesn't work so good in rugby, and it's not all that good in soccer. So you have to really put it in context. As a business person, if you want to grow your business 22% a year, you're going to double your revenue in 42 months. That's a mathematical equation. The challenge is the infrastructure going to keep on, or are you going to be under pressure because the infrastructure is not keeping up? And as a result, you start losing business because you're so focused on gaining business and not building infrastructure to support that which it is that you're building. Is that helpful, Brendan?
Absolutely. And I'm already getting a sense of the value that you're going to share throughout the next hour. But what is it about your experience and your story that you feel will be valuable for people who listen for the next 60 minutes?
Well, I think it's all subjective to the individual that's listening. But my focus, and one of the reasons I was so excited about being with you, is the whole issue of engage. Because, I speak at conferences all over the world, and we have a large consulting division, a coaching division, and all of that. But the thing that people call us about or ask me to speak about is everybody wants to be inspired. Everybody wants to be connected. But the real topic is, how do I engage? Meaning, how do I move forward with this idea? Because adults want steps. And if we give them steps, they're able to move forward. That's why in my writings and my speaking, et cetera, I always focus on not just what to do. I think most of us are pretty clear what to do. We need to be better. Okay, write that down immediately. But the question is how. And so my focus, my work, my entire life since I was, I lived in 19 foster homes. I went to 11 different schools. And I learned pretty quickly the only way I was going to be able to, shall we say, not be a victim of those circumstances, is to focus on the steps I was going to take to be able to relate to people, connect with people, to move forward in life. And I think it's exactly the same as where we are in business today. We need to help all of the people with whom we work and the customers with whom we serve to be able to understand how to move forward to the next step.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a beautiful segue. The enable part of our own vision in terms of inspire, connect, and enable is so critically important to us in terms of showing people how. And your latest book, congratulations, by the way. I love the writing style, and I love the way you've laid this out. 100 proven ways to acquire and keep clients for life.
Thank you.
You discuss at the start of this about the importance of understanding what clients and prospects really want. So can you elaborate on that and also address, where do we go wrong as businesses in misinterpreting or not addressing what they want?
Okay, good, excellent. Let's begin with sort of the beginning. What do they really want? To your question. Well, competency is a given today. If you're in the air conditioning business and you're running a business that we service air conditioning, there's somewhat of a competency that I guess they know something about air conditioners. Okay, you're a financial advisor, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, a physician, a registered, whatever your occupation business is, there's a given sense that they're hopeful, at least, that you have some competency in that area. So therein lies the challenge. Because the challenge is, and I'll shift to the second part of your question as in part of the answer to the first, the challenge is as business owners, as professionals, as marketing professionals, as individuals in business, we tend to fall in love with our product and our platform and our processes and our procedures and what I call the P's. Well, we have a great product and a great platform and great procedures, and we really put together a great plan, and we're going to take you through our process, and you're going to absolutely love it. So as business people, we fall in love with our P's and our platform and our process. The challenge is that the consumer is in love with the experience. So in other words, what they're looking for is, and what they cherish the most, is the experience they have and the outcome you deliver. And so what's happened, we've seen this massive shift in consumer behavior, partly because of the pandemic. People began to recognize, wait, whoa, I got lots of options out here. My money can be spent anywhere, and most industries, if not all, are fully commoditized now. With AI, it's going to become even more commoditized. So the relationship we build with those customers is critical. So the final part of your question is, what are they looking for? I'll put that now in the back and say this. There are only four things. When I did all the research for this book, which has been over essentially a lifetime of coaching and consulting and working with people all over the world, what I've discovered is people are looking for four things today. The first is they're looking for someone in a company that is thoughtful, stops talking about themselves and rather talks about the outcome that they will be receiving. Secondly, they're looking for someone in a company and an individual to be kind, go the extra mile, be kind to me. Don't be harsh with me. Don't bang me over the head. Don't try to convince me. Could use a little curiosity and get me engaged. Maybe that'd be good. Find out a little more about me. Thirdly, be caring, care enough to know what I'm really looking for. Don't assume because I come in, and don't ask me, can I help you? Or how can I help you? Because I have no clue how you can help me. I'm just here because I got a toothache. So I'm hoping you can help me. Or I'm here because I need my air conditioner fixed, or I need my car, I need my wealth, or I want to buy a new house. So they want somebody to be what? Thoughtful, kind, caring, and last but not least, empathetic. Understanding their situation, meaning the customer situation, is unique to the customer. You may have seen it 150 times. You might even know the solution before they even know they have a problem. But they're asking you to be at least empathetic to their situation. And if you're thoughtful, kind, caring, and empathetic, there's no amount of competitive dollars that are going to take that business away from you, because they're no longer just satisfied customers. Satisfied customers are loyalty neutral. The research I did in the book and all of our consulting over many different types of markets, from fast food to hospitality to NFL teams, all different types of organizations. Here's what we found out. 20 to 30% of people that were customers of a company said they were satisfied. When we asked the next question, would you be open to switching? Absolutely. Because they weren't delighted advocates. That's what prompted me to say, you know what? I need to talk to these people and ask them, how can I turn you into a delighted advocate? And thus, I came up with 100 ways that people in the marketplace said, if a company or a person would do this, I'm an advocate, I'm not going anywhere. Is that helpful?
I'm smiling as you say this. We write specifically to this in our own book, Simple Scaling, and we reference proposition as the seventh principle of our ScaleX framework. And my background is in both software engineering and in manufacturing, where there were many mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. I've worked a lot with engineers, and what I've noticed is that engineers become fixated and fascinated and emotionally attached to the latest widget that they've improved, without ever truly understanding or standing in the shoes of the customer to discern the value that that widget improvement will actually bring. And I always use the analogy to people years ago, when we first started to drive. I would meet our friends, we would pop the bonnet of the cars, we would look under the bonnet, we'd fascinated with the engines, I don't know how many cars I've driven over the last 5 years, and I could count in one hand the amount of times that I've actually lifted the bonnet of those cars. I don't care what's under the bonnet anymore. What I truly care for is the experience that that car will give me, and the experience that I have with the actual company that sells me that. And I have maintained relationships with companies where the car has let me down, but the service experience, the aftercare experience has been exceptional in terms of the empathy that those businesses have shown. So I this resonates so strongly. You mention in the book the four E's in the context of the experience that clients are after. Can you share with our audience what those four E's are, Richard?
Yeah, these four E's are really the foundation of the relationships that people are looking for today with a provider. And they want emotional. If you think about this, what are they really looking for? They want an emotional experience. And that leads to an emotional in what? Enjoyment. Let me say it a different way. They're looking for an elevated experience, which leads to emotional engagement. So the four E's, they want something elevated. They want a great experience. It leads to what? An emotional response, which leads to emotional engagement. So if you really think about what is your business doing, are you really giving people an elevated experience? They're going to have an experience with you one way or another. And as a business person, you get to decide what that's going to be. So they want an elevated experience. I mean, good, you mentioned, two things you mentioned just briefly there was good service. Well, today, good service is no longer good enough. If good service was good enough, then why are people changing companies so rapidly? Because they're what? They're taken for granted. They're a satisfied client or customer, but they're not a delighted advocate. Why? Because there's no real elevated experience. Thus, there's no emotional engagement. And when there's no emotional engagement, I'm open to what's next or who's next. So when you think about it from the perspective of what you just said, this idea that service is a great thing, but the thing that I liked that you commented on, you didn't speak about service. You talked about the level of engagement that you were getting from, and the case you indicated was the auto dealer. Well, that level of engagement, that level of emotional engagement comes because they gave you an elevated experience. That's where the four E's come in. An elevated experience creates an emotional engagement, and an emotional engagement is a lock for a relationship. I mean, it's foundational to a great relationship. If you win them on price, we all know this. If you win them on price, you lose them on price. You built a rock solid relationship. That's a whole different ballgame.
There's so much in this that we need to get into. I'm going to come to the price piece in a moment. Win on price, lose on price. I love that. Never heard it put like that. But I want to come to that in a moment. Just in terms of the elevated experience you reference in the book, and I hadn't heard this term before in this context, that emotional security is crucial. What do you mean by that, Richard? And how do we ensure that we attain this emotional security, or grant or deliver this emotional security to our clients? Share with us what do you mean by this in the first instance?
Okay, in the first instance, what is emotional security? I think nearly everyone would agree that at some level, any type of purchase has an emotional connection to it, a need, a desire, perhaps an impulse, but there's still an emotional component to it. And particularly as we begin to select out providers and service providers and people with whom we're going to do business. So when you begin to put it in context, say, okay, what does emotional security mean? People want to feel like I'm in the right place with the right company, with the right provider, with the right salesperson. And the only way that can happen is they've got to feel this sense of connection. And it goes back to, do I perceive you as being kind? Do I perceive you as being thoughtful? Do I perceive you as really caring about me? Example, I'm caring. Most people, when they come in and they'll say, well, how can I help you? Or what can I do for you? Well, I don't even know. I'm not sure how you can help me, and I'm not sure what you can do for me, but I need to, my finances are completely out of whack, or I'm going to need a loan, but I'm not really sure what you can do for me. I just want to explain my situation. And one way you can really immediately get people to feel emotionally secure, they're in the right place, they're like, oh, I finally found you, is get them to tell you their story. So as an illustration, instead of saying, how can I help you? You could say, well, let's take an example. Let's say in the real estate business, okay, as an illustration. If someone talks to you about, comes into your office, or maybe they're at an open house and saying, how can I help you? Are you looking for a house? I mean, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't looking for a house. But the truth is, I come in and instead of just jumping right in, how can I help you? Or do you have a realtor? Why don't you just simply say to that individual, I'm here to help you find the house of your dreams if that's what you're looking for. But before we get to all of that, I'm curious, how long have you lived here in Houston, Texas? Or how long have you lived here in Lincolnshire? Or how long have you lived here in Berlin? Or how long have you lived here in New Zealand? Because I can tell from your accent, you're from another country. And they all laugh, and now they tell their story. Or if you're in the financial business, I would say, I'm here to help you get your financial life in balance. But before we get to that, I'm curious. What are some of the things you're most proud of in the business you've built? Or how long have you, what am I getting them to do? I'm giving people permission to share their story. And I can tell you from our focus groups, from the amount of consulting we've done all over the world, from the Middle East to the Far East, every single time an individual says, tell me a little about your story, guess what? When you say, I'm curious, tell me about what are you most proud of in your life? How long have you lived in the area? Why are you looking for a Lexus? Guess what? People are going to say, well, and here comes their story. And they feel like, finally, somebody cares enough to find out a little about me instead of sitting here talking about their piece, their platform, their product, their procedure, and their process. And it just changes the game. I mean, I've seen people just go, oh, gosh. Well, let me tell you, and here it comes. You'll get 30 minutes of great story, and they feel like, now that we're friends. May I tell you just a quick anecdote on this?
I'd love to hear it.
I had a young fellow from the Carolinas, and he has a client in Baltimore, Maryland. He's in the financial service business. Client in Baltimore, okay, great, who has a brother in Houston, or in Dallas, excuse me. So clients in Baltimore, this kid lives in North Carolina. The client in Baltimore has a brother that lives in Houston, in Dallas. So this individual is going to a meeting in Dallas. The advisor is going to a meeting in Dallas, tells the client in Baltimore, she said, you ought to meet my brother. So he gets to Dallas at the hotel. The brother comes to me. The brother sits down and says, okay, give me your pitch, because I know you're my sister's financial advisor. And he said, well, my whole job is to help people get their financial life in balance. But before we get to all of that, how long have you been in the automotive business here in Dallas? The guy talked for over 45 minutes about how he became a district manager for a major manufacturer. And when he was all done, he said, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to move my business to you because my advisor's in Philadelphia and all he tries to do is sell me stuff. You haven't tried to sell me anything. You really wanted to find out about my story. Quote. And he said, once we get my business moved, I've got 16 auto dealers that report to me as their district manager. I'd like to put together a meeting and you fly down and talk to them and find out their story.
It sounds so obvious, doesn't it? You know, everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone wants to share a platform and space to share their story. Yet, you know, I've been in business for more than 20 years, and certainly the previous business in which I was a CEO of, and we sold multi-million pound projects across the globe. We became a leader in our industry. But I reflect back now in different meetings that I was called into, and you were always compelled to share your competency, the number of projects that you delivered across the world, the difficult challenges that you'd overcome. And I reflect back now, and just in the context of what you're saying, Richard, that sounds so obvious. There's another question that I would pose going back there is, what's your vision for the future? What does great look like in the next 3 to 5 years? Because in hearing that, then I'm better placed to actually support that person, that prospect, that client with what we have to offer, to deliver them value, to enable them to actually deliver that. But actually, you've been in and headed up some incredible organizations in the context of the sales and marketing functions. What's happening within the training of our sales and marketing personnel, which seems that the bias is all around us as the seller and our P's, as opposed to asking what are really, you know, open questions which give people a platform to share their story. What's gone wrong? Because what you've just described seems so obvious, yet it's the exception rather than the norm.
Well, that's a wonderful question. And although I obviously would never share the company, it's interesting you asked that type of question. Because yesterday, I spoke at a conference last week, and for a sales organ, a multinational in the financial services world. And I spoke at one of their major conferences. And I was approached by a young lady at the end, and she said, we need your help. What you just spoke about on building relationships and how to elevate the client experience is stand apart from the competition and really understand the consumer's point of view. She said, I've got pages of notes here. She said, but I realized that we have a gap. And the gap is we're really focused on product knowledge. We're really focused on thinking like a merchandiser instead of like a marketer. And she said, what we've not done is we haven't done a good job of teaching people, our entire sales force, our marketing force, and even our call center on how to connect with people and build relationships. She said, that's the major gap that we have. And then she said, this not only applies to our baby boomers, but for every generation. And I said, well, as you know, I have a presentation I do on working with the multiple generations in your company. If you want to lead multiple generations, you have to understand the nuances of each. And I said, let's be clear. Many businesses still rely on cold calling and emailing to drive their sales. The challenge is the last two generations coming into the sales force, they're not as tuned into, I want to make cold calls and talk to people on the phone and send emails. They want to find a way to relate to people. They want to make a difference. So if you're going to do that, we've got to shift the strategy away from, not that cold calling's bad and not that emailing's bad, but the reality is, because that's all about trying to convince people, and people don't want to be convinced of anything. On the other hand, if I can get involved in their industry, let's say into their marketplace, if you're selling medical supplies, join the medical supply industry association, teach your salespeople how to build relationships, how to go from meeting people to meeting with people, so that those individuals then can drive their business in the way they want, which is purpose-driven, not pressure-driven. As an example, and she said, well, what do you mean? I mean, they go to these meetings, but do they pass out their business cards? I said, no, we don't want to go and use our automatic business card wrist shooter strapped on and try to get everybody to take our business card. What we need to do is to go to a meeting and don't work the room. And she said, well, we teach them to try to work the room. I said, no, we don't want them to work the room. They're only going to talk to a few people. Work the door. So when people come in, they stand there and say, hi, nice to see you. My name is Richard Weylman. Are you looking forward to this evening? Yes. What are you looking forward to the most? Oh, I'm looking forward to, and whatever. Welcome to the dinner. Welcome to the Rotary. Whatever it might be, but work the door. In a couple of months, everybody's going to know you. But most importantly, they get to share a little of their story, back to your point earlier, their story. That's one. Then work the room after the room's filled up. And when you meet people, maybe you're sitting at a table. You got two on the left, two on the right. That's who you're going to talk to. When it's over, so, Brendan, I've really enjoyed spending time with you at dinner tonight, and I really enjoyed the program. But now that we spend a little time together personally, I'd like the privilege of introducing myself to you professionally. So why don't we get together and have coffee one day next week? And after we have a conversation about your business and mine, we can decide if we need to bring it up again. I don't know, what's good, Tuesday, Thursday? And it's remarkable because what happens is there's no pressure here. People want to get to tell their story. After we talk a little bit about my business and yours, we can decide if we need to bring it up again. It takes all the pressure off. The younger generation loves it because it puts it right in their wheelhouse of how they want to engage and make a difference. And even people that are baby boomers have the same mindset. Thank God I don't have to stand there and pass out business cards and hope this guy or gal calls me. Rather, I can engage with them, have a conversation, start the relationship foundation by getting a little of their story during dinner, and then we can meet. And when we meet, I'm not going to sit down and say, I'm an engineer in the engineering business. Let me tell you how we build our business. Nobody cares. Say, as I told you, I'm an engineer and I really enjoy working in engineering industrial. But before we get to all of that, tell me a little about your business. And it's incredible what happens.
There's something here when I go back to kind of the base values of creating that emotional engagement of being thoughtful, kind, caring, empathetic.
Right.
We have all experienced situations where we have had a situation with a particular product or service, and we've dealt with someone, whether it be on the phone or in person, and they've basically said, sorry, computer says no. And we feel that leaves us feeling resentful, frustrated, irritated. We've also been in situations, and I'm sure the listeners can relate to this, where potentially a young person behind the counter has listened and has been empowered to resolve it without kind of 3 layers of escalation. To me, there's obviously a significant difference in the outcome, but there's something is happening at a leadership level within those organizations. Can you speak to that, Richard, and the importance at a leadership level of empowering your people to be armed to actually with what they need to create this emotional engagement?
Absolutely. And I'd like to tell you just a brief story and then get into a little detail on that. Would that be acceptable, Brendan?
Please.
Give you some thought. Okay. Before I wrote the book, about a year ago, November, I was speaking at it was in my head I was waking up in the middle of the night. My wife's like, if you don't start writing this book, you're going to be, never going to sleep. So, I mean, I'd get up at 2 a.m, like making notes in the office. Anyhow, I was speaking at a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't know, about a 1,200 ballroom, 1,200 people, whatever, normal keynote in terms of audience size. So, and anyhow, I was speaking about elevating the client experience to stand apart from the competition. And I was about 20 minutes, and I said, as an illustration, I saw on LinkedIn this morning, most everyone listening to this is perhaps familiar with LinkedIn. I saw on LinkedIn this morning, a woman posted about her cat. And I said she had a standing order with Chewy, the pet food company, for cat food to come every month to her house to feed her cat. Well, this November, the cat food came, and she picked up the phone and called Chewy and said to the rep, I want to return this order. My cat has died. And the rep said, absolutely not. You cannot return your order. And of course, you could feel the audience was like, "Ugh." I said, and then she said, we want you to donate it to a shelter and we're going to give you 100% credit on your bill. Ooh, well, fabulous. And I said, but that's only part of the story, because this woman on LinkedIn continued to write. 3 days later, she got a bouquet of flowers and a condolence card from the rep at Chewy. And at that instant, in the middle of 1,200 people or so, this woman stands up in the middle of the audience and screams, that was my cat. Posted that on LinkedIn. I mean, you talk about, I was shocked. The CEO, he was like, oh my God. And he said on the front row, he's like, who was that? And this woman said, you see that? I got almost 1,000 likes already. So I just stopped. I said, ladies and gentlemen, we could end right here. What does this tell us about Chewy? And the whole room, Brendan, begins to chant, we're switching to Chewy. We're switching to Chewy. There is the proof of the pudding, as they say in the great Isles of Britain. The truth of the matter is that was a connection. Now, how did that happen? I think leaders have to ask themselves, well, how would that rep know to do that? How is that possible? Are they empowered? I mean, did they have permission? I mean, I'll tell you how. Because when you build a culture that's all about the customer, not the client-centric stuff you're hearing from all these so-called whatever, I don't know what anyway, we have to be client-centric, they're on the customer journey. I got news for you. I don't want them in any journey. I want them to come here, stay here, and never leave. Okay, this is the end of the journey. This is home. We're here. Thank you. Don't leave me. Okay, I don't want them on some journey. And, we have to do this. And here's the reality. The reality is when the leadership team teaches their people to be kind, thoughtful, caring, and empathetic, they will in turn be all about the customer or the client. But if you don't teach that, then they become all about themselves. And as a result, your employees become all about themselves. They don't work good in teams. They're not culturally centric in the sense that they're not caring and kind and thoughtful and empathetic. And so as a result of that, you're bringing in customers, you're losing customers, and you're pretty much just in an ebb and flow world. If you want to have a rock solid business, you need to build a base where a culture and the people, shall we say, are enabled, let's use your fabulous phrase, to be able to what? To elevate the client experience, the customer experience, one customer, one client at a time. One more example, Chick-fil-A. In the United States, that's a big brand. You may have had it.
I've enjoyed it lots of times.
Yeah, it's a fabulous chicken sandwich. I knew the founder very well, Truett Cathy. We had a lot of conversations, spent time together, traveled together. He passed away a couple of years ago from skin cancer. However, he always said to me, Richard, he said, I can never let my people forget. We're in the people business. We're not in the chicken business. And that was a brilliant point. And if you go into a Chick-fil-A, I mean, just to give you a sense, this is the number. Chick-fil-A is closed 52 days a year, every Sunday. So that means, for example, they close November 15th and reopen January 1st. Okay, there you go. That's the picture. Got it? So we're closed basically from November 15th to January 1st. Yet they're producing more revenue per store than any other fast food store in the country. And they're closed 52 days a year, and they're not open 24/7. So the question is why? Well, for anybody listening to this, is because the top leadership, Dan, who's the Truett's son, and the entire organization is focused on one thing. We're in the people business. We're going to elevate that experience at every single store. And how did they start with it? They start with, please, my pleasure, and thank you. Please, my pleasure, and thank you. I've walked down the line at Chick-fil-A's. For Truett, he said, find out why people are here. They, a great chicken sandwich. I said, well, why else here? Well, they're so kind. They're so thoughtful. They really care about us. They're really nice here. And I ask for extra sauce, and they just pile it in the bag. And my little kid will scream, I want a lemonade too. I mean, they'll give you one free. That's why we're here. Yeah, it's a great chicken sandwich, but it's great. And there's the point. But that starts at the top. Because now, a lot of people say, well, with the client, they don't know about the top. But the point is, when you empower and enable your people to connect with your customers, your clients, it completely changes the game for your business. And that's what you become known for, just like Chick-fil-A's become known for. Is that helpful?
It's really profound, because ultimately when we talk about inspiring, connecting, enabling millions of ambitious leaders of SMEs to scale with purpose, ultimately this is what we want them to scale. Thoughtful organizations, kind organizations, caring organizations, empathetic organizations. And a lot of people listening to this go, yeah, that's all a little bit trite, a little bit Pollyanna-ish. But what we know is that those organizations are more successful, more profitable, engage their teams, and ultimately have more delighted advocates. So, this isn't, yeah, but if we do all that, then we're going to be sacrificing our profitability and our revenue growth. What we're saying is these are fundamental. If you get these right, actually, all the numbers, the outcome looks after itself.
I can give you one other example.
Go, please. I love these examples.
Freddy Steak Burger and Custard. They read my previous book, The Power of Why: Breaking Out in a Competitive Marketplace. The CEO called me, Scott Riddler, and he said, Richard, I'd like you to come out and really help us to really connect with the way we do business with our employees and with our customers, et cetera. They were a mid-sized fast food chain out of Kansas. Okay, so I went out, and just very briefly, we essentially came up with a thing called the Freddy's Way. This is the way they're going to treat all our customers. This is how it's going to go, and this is what it's going to be like. We're going to take half the booths out and put movable chairs in, so the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the church group and the Little League, they can move chairs over to each corner of the restaurant to be able to talk instead of yelling over the booths and disturbing everybody else. Long story short, they've exploded in growth. But the most important thing, they just won last year the best fast casual restaurant chain in America. They beat everybody. Smash Burger, Culver, they beat everybody by multiple percentages of votes. Because why? Because their customers said it's a fabulous steak burger and custard, but the experience is incredible. because they're being delivered the Freddy's way. And the thing we changed is every burger, every steak burger gets delivered with gracious hospitality. And every employee's been taught how to be gracious, kind, thoughtful, and caring. And it made a difference. When Minnesota Vikings built their new stadium, Kevin Warren, who's now president of the Chicago Bears, but he called me, I went up and we did an audit of the stadium, made some recommendations, more of this, more of that, widen the parking spots, put up power cords to charge every device in every suite. People are paying a lot of money. They bring in their phone. You want to plug them all in. Anyway, they went from 17th in NFL revenue, 7th in 1 year with a losing team by elevating the fan experience. That's what happens when you empower your people. You inspire them, you connect with them, you educate them, and then you enable them.
Love this. Staying on the burger chains for a moment, tactic 33, be sure to consider your restrooms.
Okay.
What do you mean by this, Richard?
Well, I think we've all had the nasty experience, and it's nasty. Let's just say that. So consider your restrooms. Okay, well, in a restaurant, well, anywhere you have your own restroom, let's put it that way. Gas station, convenience store, it matters not. Restaurant, you want to make sure that it is clean, and you should have somebody in there to check it every now and then. And just don't have a soap, but really make sure everything is clean and there's some amenities there. I have people say, well, I don't want paper towels because it's not environmentally friendly, et cetera. Well, that's fine. But then if you're not going to have paper towels, at least have, shall we say, Kleenex, because some people may need to blow their nose, as an example. But let's say you're in an office building and you share. This is where I see a lot of great opportunity in marketing. I go into restrooms in these office buildings and I'm like, here's another missed opportunity. The restroom's clean. But why doesn't the law firm down the hall or the dentist down the hall or the financial advisor or the real estate company or the CPA or whomever, why don't they have in there some hand towels, a bowl of mints, and some Kleenex and say, courtesy of ABC Financial? Well, if I go in there and I'm from the dentist, I will say, well, geez, these guys are thoughtful. And after about the third visit, I'm going to say, I wonder who these people are. And the next thing you know, you get a knock on the door. I have a team that I coach in the real estate business, and they did that. And they said, Richard, every week somebody comes and knocks on the door, walks into our office and said, I wanted to talk to you about listing my house, or tell me a little more about what you, people are curious. Why? Because what you're doing subliminally almost is what? You're engaging with people, say, we care about you. You're not our customer, but you're in our building. We want you to have a great experience. And people resonate with that. And it's a little thing. It cost, I mean, what's the cost? I don't know. Let's come up with, could we go with $20? Okay, I'm going. Or could we go with 15 pounds? Let's go with 15 pounds, or maybe 17 dinero. I don't know, but I do know this. The impact is immeasurable, but most importantly, is memorable. And what we need to do is focus on building a portfolio of memories with every prospect and every client. You build a portfolio of memories, they're not going anywhere, except right to your office, right to your business, to do business. Little thing, but I've coached several businesses on doing that. And every single one of them, about a month later, will say, unbelievable how many people have come and said, thanks for putting the hand up. Thanks for the mints. I mean, because you know why? You know what it really is, Brendan? In this world, people are desperate to find somebody that's thoughtful, kind, caring, and empathetic. And if you just demonstrate, not talk as straight, but demonstrate, it changes their entire perception of who you are and what you're about. And they feel like, finally, I've got somebody that cares about me as a person, not as an account, not as a transaction.
Yeah. And it just speaks beautifully to simple scaling. And for many of our listeners listening, they will be very familiar with the lean methodology, and especially the 2-second lean methodology as espoused by the wonderful Paul Akers. And my connotations or my understanding in manufacturing, whenever we heard about lean and wanted to bring lean into the business, was that I needed to kind of, or these people are absolute experts. You know, they've spent years and years and years learning this lean methodology. There's Six Sigma, they're black belts, and all sorts of wonderful clever people that, and they'll go off into the factory and they'll do their lean thing, and we'll be a better organization for it. Paul Akers kind of rips that up and says, whenever people ask the question, but where do I start? And we look at what they're doing within Toyota and the Toyota production system in Japan as our benchmark, and go, how do we ever reach this level of efficiency and effectiveness? And he says, really, really simple. Just start in the toilets. Start in the toilets. Have the toilets absolutely immaculate, and have a sign there. Have certainly evangelize a principle or a maximum of leaving it better than you found it. And so this speaks directly, or you're speaking directly to lean when you talk about the restrooms. I want to pick up on another term you use within the book, Richard, which is economic security. What you devote chapter 4 to economic security. What do you mean by that?
Well, briefly, I would say this: economic security, we have to recognize there's a massive gap between, we'll call them a prospect, how's that, and the company or the sales, use any phrase you want. So let's say between them and us, how's that? There's a gap. And the challenge is, because industries tend, and people, and even marketers, unfortunately, which are really, many of them are more merchandisers than they are marketers, focus on all the attributes, the features, et cetera, of a particular product or service. Often they'll go to benefits that are very generic, that I don't relate to at all. But the reality is, what happens is, most of the messaging, most sales presentations are, shall we say, about the product and the platform and the benefits thereof. So there's this massive gap, because here's what people are thinking about. They're saying, okay, I understand the features and benefits, but I'm not buying either one of those. What I want to know is, what's the advantage to me of buying this thing? What's it going to do for me? So I did a lot of work on this. We did a lot of focus groups in our coaching, consulting, with all different types of industries. And just by making a tweak in the way we communicate value, people immediately say, oh, I got it. Yes, this is what I need to do. What we focus on the advantage. Now, there's a lot of people say, what's your competitive advantage? Well, it's not your attributes, and it's not. We've been in business for 35 years. That is not a competitive advantage. Well, we are number one in our community. Well, we're happy for you there, big boy, but it's not really going to get me into the business. So what they're looking for is not the attribute and the benefit. They're important, but what's important is this. May I give you an example?
Please.
All right. So if I don't know, you pick an industry and I'll do it for you. Just pick one, Brendan, that you can think off the top of your head, and I'll perhaps do one for you.
The hospitality industry.
All right. So you might say, now, one of the things, we have the most spacious rooms here in St. Louis, Missouri. And the benefit to you is you're going to have a lot of space to live in. Well, that's not the question. How about we did this? We have some of the largest and most gracious rooms in St. Louis. And what this means to you is, you're going to have tremendous comfort. You're going to have the opportunity to live like you're living at home and enjoy your time in St. Louis. And the benefit is, you're going to have an opportunity to get great value for your money. Well, what am I going to buy? I'm going to buy the space to live at home. That's what they want to know, the advantage. You might say, I have years of experience, but what this means to you is, we're going to help you put your financial life in balance by going through your entire financial portfolio. And the benefit to you is, you're going to have a plan and a process you can follow for the rest of your life to get the retirement you deserve. So what people want to know is, what does this mean to me? And all the work we've done over many years in many industries, people consent. We ask them, why didn't you say yes? Well, there's two reasons, but the first is because the company or the advisor or the individual, the salesperson, never made it clear what it means to me. What does it mean to me? How does this apply to my? I mean, I could show you, sir. I mean, we'd survey 1,000 people, and 800 people, our interns on the phone, would say, well, they never made it clear what it meant to me. They never made it clear what it meant to me. Never made it clear. I mean, when you start hearing that time after time after time in various derivations, you begin to realize, maybe we ought to talk about how it applies to your problem there, Mrs. Wilson. Would that be helpful? That's what they're looking for. So economic security is part of emotional, but the economic security portion of it is, you have to say, here's what we do, here's what this means to you is, and here's how you benefit from it. A lot of us decide that, oh, they'll figure that out. The truth is they don't, because we speak in acronyms, or listen, we know the solution before they even know they got a problem. So what we need to do is find the problem, articulate the solution and what it means to them, and then how they'll benefit. And it changes the game. That's one example. Second one is, when you're talking to individuals, don't say things like, does that make sense? I mean, are you smart enough to keep up here, big boy, or do I need to dumb this down a little bit? That's what you're really saying. Let's go ahead and be condescending. Does this make sense? Are you with me? Are you with me there? Are you following me? Does this all make sense to you? People, I can tell you, we've done psychological research, and people go rude, rude, rude. If you push the rude button, one right after another. That makes sense? Are you with me there? Am I making this clear? And what people say, why are they so condescending? And I listened to a broadcast recently that a fellow did, a client call he did, and he kept asking the people, he said, I know it's complicated. You with me? I said, dude, don't you understand if it's complicated? It's your job to make sense of it all. It's your job to make it so they can be with you. Instead of saying, does that make sense? Just say, have I explained this in a way that is helpful? Much different approach. But what does it say to people? The onus is on me to explain the economic value of this product or service. So give them the competitive advantage. In other words, feature, put a matrix together. Here's the feature. I call it FAB. Feature, advantage is the center column. Benefit is the outside column. So you got the feature, you got the benefit. Now ask your customers, what's the advantage? We just did this for a huge banking organization. We interviewed their commercial customers, said, well, what does this feature of the bank mean to you? The CEO was shocked. He said, we would have never thought of that. Well, of course you wouldn't, because that's the consumer's point of view, and that's the point of view you use to get other consumers to see your point. Like people ask me all the time, Richard, what do you think? Who cares what I think? I spend my whole life talking to people in a stucco house to find out what they think, so I can share that with you, so you can use it to build your business and get scalable growth by inspiring, connecting, and enabling people.
Love it. Just there's a number of things, and I'm going to use our own example here. So
Sure.
we host now a 12-month accelerator program to support, to inspire, connect, and enable those ambitious leaders of SMEs to scale. So we essentially handhold them through the scaling process.
Right.
This is important because actually, if I take the UK to give you context, less than 0.5% of the 5.7 million SMEs in the UK are currently scaling, yet that 0.5% are delivering more than half of the total revenue which the 5.7 million SMEs are contributing. So they're contributing 2.3 trillion pounds worth of revenue, and that 0.5% who are scaling are contributing 1.3 trillion pounds worth of revenue. So this is really, really important. We can just turn the dial on this a little bit. I find whenever people are inquiring about the program, I can articulate the value in the context of, I can articulate the benefits. I can explain what the program looks like, X number of workshops, world-class guests, wonderful material, beautiful settings, all of that good stuff. What I find challenging, which is the real value, and what we've seen in all of these years, is the difference in how that leader feels about themselves, and invariably then about their team and about the business and about the opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years in leading this business. I always say it's like trying to explain to someone what the color green looks like if they've never seen the color green. So how do we articulate the value of a feeling? And you've led the sales teams of some incredible organizations who were leveraging an emotional gain. How do we articulate that? In my own example, how best should I convey the fact that they're going to feel different whenever I can't give them that feeling right now?
A wonderful question. and one that I struggled with for a while until I began to realize I didn't know the answer. I realized that I couldn't come up with how they feel. But if I asked them, it was remarkable, because that's the only way they knew to articulate was in the words that best described how they felt. And when I wrote my previous book, The Power of Why, Breaking Out in a Competitive Marketplace, and it's now what I think 7 languages, I spent many chapters on how do you talk to a client or a customer or a prospect and really discover what they're looking for. That's sort of important. And then B, when they have it, how they feel about it. In fact, I had a whole chapter on the advantage-based value matrix for all different types. I mean, I don't even know how many. I just got on this roll and I was writing down all these different industries. I mean, people would email me, how did you even figure out the AI industry? It wasn't really even around yet. I mean, it was just crazy, but I was just thinking about art. Anyway, my point is the way you can best do it is to talk to your customers and ask them how it made them feel. And I'll just give you a very simple illustration, if I may, Brenda. If I'm a leader in an organization and I can hire a firm to go out and interview people, I get those calls all the time. We want you to interview our customers, and it's like, no, 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 no. We're going to have you interview your customers. We're going to create the form, the document that we want your sales team to go out and talk to 3 of their best customers. And we're going to ask them a series of questions about how can we elevate the experience more effectively. As you know, we have a wonderful air conditioning service, so we have a great listing service, so we have a great engineering firm, and you're doing business with us. How do you feel about the relationship you have with us? How is the experience you've had with us made a difference? How has our product really helped you to feel more comfortable and confident that you're with the right company? And those answers are remarkable. And I'll give you an illustration. I mentioned Chick-fil-A earlier. They have become brilliant at this. Their ads in the United States do not talk at all about chicken or even sandwiches. What they do is they have a customer come and sit on a couch. Hey, tell us about the experience and how do you feel about Chick-fil-A? And they'll say something like, well, you know, I've been coming for many years and my daughter like this, and they always give her a free lemonade, or they always make me feel special when I come in the line, or I was having a problem and I wasn't able to get out of the house, and they actually brought food to my house because I'm a frequent customer of theirs. And so how do I feel about it? I'm in love with this brand. These people really care about me. But how did they discover that? Because Dan figured out, he's the head of Chick-fil-A, what he needed to do. Instead of talking about how you're going to feel, he went out and found out how they felt. We did the same thing with a bank in Israel. We did the same thing with all different types of companies. Well, I've got a group that I coach in Keller Williams, which is Barbara Corcoran's organization, Shark Tank. And she just sent me a wonderful notice on our website. But the point is that in the consulting, this was a 97th or 90 of 100 teams, they were number 97th. They finished number 5 in a year. Why? Because we taught them to go out and talk to their customers about how they made them feel by buying a house. May I give you one last example on that?
Please, I love this.
Somebody would buy a house or list a house, so they would send them a congratulations cake, a round cake that said congratulations. Oh, this is nice. But I said, well, show me what, it's a gift. I said, well, what does it say? It says congratulations. I said, yeah, but there's no reference. Well, what do you mean? I said, why don't we send them a picture of a cake? Why don't we send them a cake with a house outline on it and a new home address on it and say, welcome to your dream home? Really? Just try it. They sent it out. They got 2 new listings and 2 people have bought houses from. Why? Because people saw the cake and they came back, said, that was so thoughtful on Facebook. We saw that. We should talk to you about selling our house. Why? Because they immediately touched the feeling that people have. Auto dealers love to get up and talk about the sale. Why don't we get people up to say, I love working with this Chevy dealer, because I'm going to tell you something. I had to bring my car in for service and it was remarkable. I mean, these people went the extra mile. They took care of it. My kids were screaming. They got a little play area in there. They make me feel so welcome when I'm here, and they make a perfect private place for us. And they always go the extra mile. I love doing business here at Aki Duki Chevrolet. That's just a wonderful firm. That's how you do it. Get your customers to speak. Here's the point. Speak in their voice, think in their frame of mind. We do a massive amount of consulting in this area to help companies understand what their customers are feeling, but we don't sit down and say, let me tell you what I think they're feeling. Let me do an FBI analysis of these individuals. No, we go out and talk to them. Actually, you're going to go talk. I had a CEO. He was like, okay, we'll send everybody out. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. You got to do 5 interviews too. Well, I'm the CEO. I said, that's exactly why you're going to do the 5 interviews. He did the first one. He said, Richard, I'm in shock. I'm in shock at what these people are saying. I said, we only talked to one. You think it's a one-off? He said, I'm afraid it's not. He did the next 5 and he completely changed their culture.
The power of simple communication, just asking people,
Yeah.
we create so many layers of complexity around this, don't we? That you strip all of that back and just ask the simple question, how do you feel now that you've experienced our product or service? It's just,
You know, and when the people say to you, I love working with you because I have this wonderful portfolio of memories. Can I give you another example very
go,
quickly?
please.
Okay. There's a little donut. I have a home in Sarasota, Florida. I have a home in Honolulu and a home in Sarasota because, I travel all over the world, so it works. But I'm halfway around the world all the time to somewhere, so it works out real well. But anyhow, there's a little donut shop in Sarasota, Florida, next to the police station called 50 Donuts, very appropriate. And their brand promise is arrestingly good donuts, which I thought was quite clever. And when you buy a donut, you become a member of the squad. But I bought my first donut there on August 4th, 2019. And he said, well, how do you know that? Do you eat a lot of donuts? No, I have about one a year, every August 4th. Why? Because every August 4th, I get a text from them. Congratulations for another successful year as a loyal customer. $5 off your next donut. All right, now this is a donut shop. Let's boil this right down to where the nub meets. This is a donut shop next to a police station in a strip mall in Sarasota, Florida. Now she's expanded now to 7 locations in Florida because of what? She stays in touch and cultivates her relationships with her customers, even though I buy one donut a year. Now, let me ask you a question. If I got my air conditioner service, when's the last time I heard from you? When you think it's time to service, are you going to send me a congratulations, another successful year as a client? If you're an investment advisor and I buy a product from you, a life insurance policy, annuity, or make an investment, do I ever hear from you again? Probably you're going to send me a birthday card, tell me I'm getting older, I better hurry up and buy something else before the price goes up. Why don't you send me congratulations, another successful year as a client of mine card? When I was in the Rolls-Royce business, Brendan, I built the 3rd largest Rolls-Royce dealership network in the world. And the way I did it, and this was even long before we had the CRMs we have today, I don't like customer relationship manager. That really should be called a customer experience manager. Put up deals together where you can capture the things people are passionate about and not so passionate about. If they don't drink alcohol, it'd be good if you noted it before you invited them to a beer fest. Just a thought. But the reality is what I did is I kept track of every single one of my owners. And what year, I always ask, what year did you start your business? Or what year did you this? Or what year did that? And they tell me. And every year at the beginning of the month, every month, I would send a congratulations on another successful year as a dear owner of ours. We're here for you. Change the game.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And people listening to this go, yeah, we know that. And in many respects, everyone knows what to do, but very few people ever do what they know. And what we're sharing here is so simple, yet so profound in the context of the results that it generates.
Yeah.
I want to pick up on price, Richard.
Yeah.
Before we move into the close. You mentioned if you're winning on price, then you leave yourself open to lose on price. And we, again, back to the proposition principle of our 10 principle ScaleX framework, I talk about the importance of being able to articulate the value, because if you can't, then the only place you're left to talk about, the only thing you're left to talk about is the price. And the customer typically, and especially in a B2B setting, will want to take you there, and they'll want to take you there really quickly, especially when you're dealing with large procurement centers. And so it's critically important that you're able to articulate the value. Go to price and you risk then jumping off what we call margin killer canyon very, very quickly, because it becomes a race to the bottom. In your experience, how do we avoid that price discussion such that it becomes a race to the bottom?
a great question, and it's one that it's an issue, I think, in every industry, maybe every professional, every company. And one of the reasons that companies get caught in the race to the bottom is because there's several reasons, but one is they don't articulate clearly that which it is they do on behalf of the customer or the prospect. And what do I mean by that? People assume that people know that which it is that you're doing. So even if I'm buying a commodity, I'm buying a refrigerator, it's easy for me to talk about, well, this refrigerator, this, that, and the other, and this is the price of this one, this is the price of that one. If you want to compete in the refrigerator space, what you need to talk about is not just the refrigerator, but talk about the fact we've got a lifetime guarantee and warranty. What that means to you is that if anything goes wrong, we're going to come out and repair it at no cost to you. And the benefit to you is your food's always going to be cold and not perish. Well, if you say that and the other guy's trying to compete on price, that immediately sets you apart because it's crystal clear to them the value you're delivering, where the other guy's delivering only one thing, and that's a lower price. And in the absence of value, Brendan, price is always the driver. And the challenge is most sales professionals, I've been guilty of it myself, all of us have, we tend to talk about the attributes, but what we don't do is spend enough time explaining that which it is that we do or our product does on the behalf of the customer. Here's what it will do for you. Good examples when Lexus came to this country, and of course, you mentioned Toyota earlier. In Japan, I've done a lot of speaking in Japan. We don't have Lexus, we have the Grand Toyotas. It's the same car, which is a different brand in the US. All right, but when you walk into a Lexus dealership, the first question is, why do you want to buy a Lexus? The second is, who do you want to buy it for? And they spend a lot of time on who you want to buy it for. It's because you'll say, well, I want safety, it's for my daughter, and it's for this and my family, et cetera. And then a whole presentation about a Lexus is about the things you said you were buying it for. So what does it do? The value goes up, the price goes down. The challenge is that most of us, I said earlier on, jump to the conclusion that people understand, or that they see that, shall we say, they see the value of the purchase. So to help people with that, two things. Number one, talk in very clear language, the features and attributes of your product. Secondly, what it does for them specifically. Thirdly, give them personalized benefits, not the generic crap that you see in marketing brochures. You'll have a better life. Well, people, yeah, thank you. Okay, it doesn't mean much to me there, big boy. So it doesn't mean much. So speak specifically. And how do you do that? Get them to tell their story on the front. That way you know what the personalized benefits are on the back. All right. And the key thing, and the reason to get caught in a race to the bottom is twofold. One, because your promise of value is weak. And secondly, you don't talk in steps. I'm going to answer both of those in this way. We interviewed people and asked them, why didn't you make a buying decision? You know what they said? Well, the sales rep just came, so what do you think? Does that make sense? With me on that? But they never told us what the next step was. And adults want steps. So Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, have I explained this in a way to you that is helpful? Yes, it is. Okay, now here's our next steps we're going to take. All right, first thing we've got to do is get the title for your car so we can get that traded in and get to correct appraisal. Or, okay, here's the steps we need to take. We need to make sure that we get your property inspected so we can get it listed correctly for the right price and reappraised. Or what the next step we have to take is we need to assess your air conditioning unit outside to see if any parts need to be replaced. You see, give me next steps. Adults want steps. That's key. Second point, and we just did this for a property and casualty company in the US. They were on a race to the more than a race. They'd even skipped the elevator. They were just in a plummet to a race to the bottom. And their goal was, let's see how many quotes we can write. My point was, why? Why don't we see how much business we can write? So I had them go out and interview their customers about why they did business with them, which, by the way, was none of the reasons they thought. We have low prices, we have great coverage. They were like, no. You know what their customer said? Because you take a personal interest in protecting what we value most. Oh. So we rebranded the entire company. We take a personal interest in protecting what you value most. So when I sit down and people say, well, how do you compare to Allstate and State Farm? Well, let me tell you, our customers say that we take a personal interest in protecting what they value most. So what do you protect most, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson? And they'll tell them, and it's like, great. Now, here's the policies we'd recommend that will protect what you value most. Now, our next steps, and you know what? They're no longer in a race to the bottom. They're seventh in revenue in the United States. How'd that happen? Well, pretty simple. We figured out what people wanted. We articulated it for them. We set a brand promise in place. Oh, and we gave people steps to take to become business. I have a bank we just finished in a different part of the world, and they bring shared values to their community. We changed them. They're up 800 million in revenue, 800 million in deposits. Why? Because they connect with the constituents. Is that helpful?
Really, really helpful. And I can't believe we're way past the hour. I could keep you here for another 3 hours, Richard. There's so much value in what you've delivered today. We always ask this closing question, and given the incredible experience that you've had across so many industries across the globe, and especially even given your background experience, can you share with our listeners today 3 timeless takeaways?
Well, I would say first, be open to new ideas. The world is changing. Everybody's worried about AI. Well, the beauty of AI is it makes it easier. But the other beauty of AI, you can really personalize and humanize if you gather the data on the front end, because it remembers who you are and what you're writing about and what you're communicating about. That's one. So be open to new ideas. 2, be willing, and I think it's really important, be willing to make some changes. People say, I'm open to new ideas. I sent a guy an email the other day, came and said, this sounds hard. Isn't there an easier way? No, I sent you the hard way. You figure that out. No, you gotta be willing to make some changes. So open to new ideas, be willing to make some changes. And 3rd, be willing to ask for help. It's okay to reach out and say, I'm stuck here. As you know, Brendan, we've got a huge coaching and consulting division. We don't just consult. We have coaches that help the firms implement, because you're going to get stuck. And my whole team of people, they're all senior executives. They've all built business. This is what we do, and we've worked in all different genres and industries. So the advantage is you can pick up the phone and say, Tiffany, I'm stuck. Lauren, I'm stuck. Great. Well, we'll help you get there. But you have to be willing to what? Ask for help. So the 3 takeaways: be open to new ideas, be willing to make some changes, and for God's sakes, be willing to ask for help to get you from where you are to where you need to be. That's important. And I suppose in the other point I would make around the elevating the experience is just be kind, to be thoughtful, be caring, and empathetic. Be empathetic. And don't tell people I'm empathetic and then ask a tough question. No, don't do that. When you're going to be empathetic, put the predicate on the back. Just a quick story. I woke up in the night on this. I sat bolt up because I've been struggling with how can I show people how to be empathetic? It's a tough, how do you show that? I sat up in the middle of the night in bed. I went, it's the predicate, and woke my dog up. Rolex. He starts barking like thinking there's a predator, I guess. And my wife, what is it? I said, it's the predicate. She said, I said, it's the predicate. The predicate's the problem. She said, honey, please write this book. We can't get any sleep here. So I went down and I wrote it down. Here's what we say. If you don't mind me asking, how much money do you have? Well, I do mind you asking, and I don't appreciate you asking me that way. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? As soon as you put, if you don't mind me asking, people are like, it's the predicate. How much money you're willing to invest in your house, if you don't mind me asking? How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? How many times have you been married, if you don't mind me asking? I've gotten hundreds of emails from people all over the world that I've shared this on a platform, and they're like, oh my God, people were like, oh, well, I normally wouldn't tell anybody, and here it comes. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful.
Simple, but again, so profound. And on the subject of asking for help, I suspect, Richard, and I'm confident when people listen to this, there'll be many who will want to connect with you for help. So how best to reach you?
Best way is you can just go to Richard, WEYLMAN.com. WEYLMAN.com. Richard at Richard. So you just go to richardweylman.com. And my email is similar, Richard at richardweylman.com. Just go to richardweylman.com. There's inquiry forms. You can send them. I see everyone. We see every single one. We respond to everybody. So send me an email. But just go to Richard Weylman.com. And you can also, of course, find me on LinkedIn too, which has a billion people in the world at it. So I'd be delighted to hear from you. And if we can help you with any, with a presentation, perhaps at your conference or consulting or coaching, feel welcome to reach out. And my book is 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. It's available on all platforms, Amazon worldwide now, all the major books, well, even the minor bookstores have it on, and I'd be delighted for you to read it and send me some feedback or post a review. And Brendan, thank you for the privilege of being with you today. It's been a real blessing.
Oh, Richard, look, you're an absolute joy. I love your energy. I love your positivity. The way you have distilled your experience and delivered it in such a simple and profound way. I really appreciate that. And I wish you every success with your book. We'll put links to the book in the show notes and links, of course, to your website. I encourage people to go out and grab a copy. Once again, 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. Richard, thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your wonderful energy and wisdom with me today. Take care.
Thank you, Brendan. Same to you. Bye for now.